Hey guys, welcome to this week's episode. I am so excited about this season. We are starting a new season and we will be focusing on embracing your purpose. Last season, we covered friendships. We were covering our people quadrant here at Tisha Talks Topics, which we look into relationships and friendships, and we talk about those things because we know that building relationships are important in our journey to build community with each other. And so we have to know how to have healthy relationships and how to function in a space so that we can really set up our tribe and our community properly, right? And so this season we are focusing on our purpose quadrant. And that purpose quadrant is all about living the life that you've been called to, living the life that you've been created for. Y'all know that I believe that everybody has been created with purpose. There is not one person on this earth that has not been intentionally created with a purpose, right? And it is up to us to uncover and discover what that is and to actually walk in it. Yes, it is up to us. No one else can fulfill your purpose for you but you. And so I'm so excited to shift into that season. For those of you who may be joining us or me for the first time, here at Tisha Talks, we cover, I call them 5 quadrants. And so the first one is people. The second one is personal, which stands for our personal development and our personal growth. The third one is professional. And so that's anything that we're aspiring to do, leadership qualities, leadership skills, all those things that we need to be these boss ladies out here that so many of you are. And then the fourth P is passion. Those things that you are passionate about, those gifts that you have, those talents that you have, pursuing those things, your side hustles, the things that you've always wanted to do, right? And then the last P is purpose. And that's where we're landing this season. Our purpose is all about our God given responsibility, really. Our God given responsibility, what God specifically created us to do, and how we walk along that journey to discover that and to fully walk in it. And so I wanted to start this week's podcast. Before what we have planned for this season coming up is I have a lot of interviews with women who are walking in their purpose and they're sharing their purpose journeys with me. Y'all, I just absolutely love it because it's so important for us to share, encourage, and inspire each other along the way because life by nature is unexpected and it gives us a lot of challenges. We go through a lot of ups and downs, and it's so helpful to see how someone else was able to overcome and to pursue purpose and to keep walking despite the many, 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 many distractions that we may face. And so I have a lot of awesome women coming on that are going to be sharing this journey with us. And I'm super excited. But before we do that, before we actually get to um, sharing that journey, I wanted to just chat with you guys about purpose. Like what is the definition of purpose? How are we embracing our purpose and we're not really sure what that is or what that looks like for us? And so we're going to talk a little bit about that this episode. And so the dictionary definition of purpose is as I read. The reason for which something is done or created or for which something exists, right? And so that's the reason. The reason that you are existing is a part is it's not a part of is your purpose, right? Is by definition the meaning of purpose. And that is the noun form of the meaning. There's also a verb form of the meaning, which is have as one's intention or objective. And so that means that purpose is also an action. Y'all, I feel a word coming on. I feel a word coming on. Purpose is also an action. It is not just a thing for which we were called to. It is something that we also have to pursue and walk out and do, right? And so that let that just marinate for a minute, because a lot of people are like, oh, I'm living my purpose, or I want to be purposeful, and I want to do this and I want to do that. But it's not just a way of, it isn't just it is a way of being. It's a way of living. It's a way of being intentional about your actions and your steps so that you can be fulfilling that purpose to which you have been called. And so I wanted to, y'all know, one of my taglines, what I absolutely love to say, and I mean it with all of my heart, is when passion meets purpose, great things happen. I truly believe that when we align our passion with our purpose, great things are bound to happen for us as individuals. And so I want to talk a little bit about what that means, right? And what that means is that everyone has like things that they're passionate about, gifts that they have, talents that they have, things that they do, whether it's naturally or something that they have learned that brings them joy and brings them fulfillment. And if that thing brings you fulfillment and joy, that is great. But when you align it with purpose, it then attaches to your ability to use that gift, to use that passion, to use that thing to serve and to service the people around you so that they are also impacted and influenced by what you do. And that can manifest itself in so many different ways, right? It just really depends on what your particular passion is and how you choose to align it with purpose, right? And so I want to dive in a little bit about this a little bit more. But before I get started, I want to share my purpose journey. And what I mean by that is I want to share like how I was awakened to this whole purpose perspective of life, right? And so I would say I was about a year and a half shy of age 40. Yes, your girl is over 40. And I was super busy. I had 5 kids. I was a mom and a wife, and I had a full-time job, and I had so many other um, activities and things that I was doing as if it was another full-time job. I mean, I was like the leader of the finance department in a nonprofit I volunteered at, the administrative department. I had done like concerts and conferences and events, just always busy. The weekends were not weekends to relax, they were time to do something, just always juggling many different hats and doing a lot of different things. But I had gotten to the place where I just really felt so unfulfilled. As an individual, as a person, you're servicing other people, you're serving other people's dreams and other people's purposes, right? And other people's passions. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. But when you're neglecting what it is that you've been called to do, and you begin to find yourself frustrated. And it's because you're out of alignment, because you're not aligned with what you've been created to do. And so I was just busy. Y'all, felt like I was on a hamster wheel, just running and running and running this hamster wheel. And I was running, y'all, but where was I going? Where was I going? And so as this began to unfold for me, I just really, I don't know if it was like midlife something, about to be 40, and just like there has to be more, but I definitely felt like there has got to be more to this. And what is that more? And I want to do it, right? So a good friend of mine recommended a book that I would recommend to anyone who is trying to find out what it is that they've been called to do and how they can live a life of more, right? And the book is called Abundance Now by Lisa Nichols. And the best thing that this book did for me was allowed me to dream. Y'all can't, well, those of you who might be watching this video, y'all see I have a picture behind me that says, live your dream. Um, it allowed me to dream. Honestly, at that point of life, I had had my children, my first daughter, I was pregnant at 19 and had her at 20. And so all of my adult life was about giving to someone else and doing for someone else. And I had just gotten into that space where it's like, okay, cool. Well, you had your chance and, now that's over. And you need to be pouring into all other people, pouring into these children, pouring into other things, because, you kind of missed that boat type thing. And what she gave permission to do was really dream again and really come back to who you are, right? And I think so many of us along the way, we lose who we are because of life and just because of life. And so one of the things that I did was I imagined my funeral. I imagined my eulogy, and I imagined someone standing up there reading my eulogy, and I had to say, what do I want them to say about me? How do I want my eulogy to be read? What do I want it to say? And so, of course, you get the like, oh, she was a great mom, she was a great wife, she was a great worker. And I'm like, I want that thing to say more than that. So those things are great. And those things are true, but I also wanted to say more. And when I really began to give myself permission to dream, like if it could say anything, like if people were to remember me for something, what would I want them all, my kids, my husband, all them and the rest of the people that I know, what would I want them to remember about me? What would I want to leave? What imprint and what impact would I want to leave with them? And so I began to write it down. And one of the things that and it wasn't clear. Like I was like, oh, I want them to say she was like, she owned this $1 million company. I mean, maybe that is something that someone may want, but that just wasn't mine. It wasn't very clear. But what I was clear on was that I wanted them to say that she influenced me and that she encouraged me to do better and to keep going and to be my best, right? I knew that I wanted it to say something like that. Like I wanted them to be like, she really helped me, progress forward, or she really helped, she really encouraged me. I was really inspired by her. And so I knew that the words inspire, influence, encourage, um, changed the trajectory of my life. Like I knew that I wanted something in that space. And so I began to write that stuff down. Then the next thing I began to do was, and I didn't do this all in one sitting, you guys, but the next thing that I began to do was just write down, like, what are you gifted at? Like, what are your natural gifts? What are things that you just naturally do really well? And sometimes it's hard for us to know what we naturally do really well because we just do them and they don't seem like gifts because they are just what we do, right? And so I also had to ask other people, like, can you just write down some things that you think that I do really well, or you just see like as natural for me? And then I just started getting like this flood of things from people. I don't remember what they all said, but I was like, oh, you start getting enlightened about the gifts that you do have, right? The marks that you do leave. And then I began to write down what things was I talented at doing. And so a talent or a skill. So that could be something that you've acquired and you've learned over the years. And so I've always been good with numbers and like budgeting and like that. Those things are, I don't want to say no brainers, but I've just acquired a skill. I've been doing that most of my professional career. And so that's something that I do that comes easy, right? So those things that come easy to you. And so I wrote them down and I had all these different lists. And I just began to look at like, what are some of the common threads? What are some of the common threads in these spaces? Also different characteristics about myself. And I knew that I was outspoken. Like people didn't even have to write that down as a thing. Because I already knew that was the thing that always used to come up. Always saying something, or tell her, she'll say it, or, she'll be the one to voice the opinion, or she'll be the one to, so I always knew I was definitely outspoken. I was definitely a talker. Um, Even though it was an extroverted characteristic that I have, even though I consider myself to be introverted with extroverted tendencies. Because I'm an only child. So I can very well just sit here by myself. I can go to the movies by myself. I can watch a movie by myself. I can go to the mall by myself. Like, I could do stuff by myself and be just as happy um, if I was with other people. But something that I did naturally do is I didn't have a problem with speaking in front of lots of people. And I didn't have a problem with speaking up or speaking an opinion that wasn't the consensus, right? Or wasn't um, that wasn't going to be easily accepted. I didn't have a problem speaking out, right? I didn't have a problem doing that. Um, I wasn't intimidated in that space. And so I just began to put all these different things together. Did I get Tisha Talks out of that? I did not. And so that's another thing about your journey, your purpose journey. It evolves as you continue to uncover it. It begins to grow. And so what I did was I said, well, I know I want to be impactful. I know I want to be impactful. I know I want to leave an influence. I know I want people's lives to be changed for the better. And so what do I have currently that will allow me to do that? So what I ended up doing was I had been, now I say I was writing a book because technically I was, but at the time I didn't know it was a book. It was just I was writing journaling, and instead of just writing in my journals, which I have tons of, I typed it because I really wanted people to know what I was talking about. And I was just going through so much chaos at the time, and the situation was just crazy. And I was just like, somebody gonna need to find this, and it's not gonna be able to be like burnt somewhere or tore up. So I'm gonna need to put it in a computer. So people, so when I'm gone, somebody finds it and they be like, that's what happened to her, right? And so I typed that out, and that thing ends up being like 30 pages. And I shared it with a couple of girlfriends. And they was like, what? What? This is drama. This is like a soap opera, right? And so so I had it, but I didn't do anything with it. And so I said, well, you know what? I've always been told that this will be a good story. This is a good book. And so I said, why don't I take this book and use it or utilize it to do just what it is that I've said that I wanted my legacy to be? And so I pulled those papers together and I wrote a book with the intention of being impactful, encouraging people, inspiring people, letting people either, if you've made these mistakes, that that those mistakes don't define you and that you are so able to live a good life and a better life. You can move on from this space, or to encourage people who are currently in that situation. And I shared how I was thinking so that you can reframe your thought process and maybe look at it a little bit differently and change, right? Because I also wanted to change the trajectory of people's lives. And so I was like, all right, this is what I have. So let me take this, let me use this and begin. Right. And once I did that, that opened the door to something else. And then that opened the door to something else. And then that opened the door to other things. And then we're where we are. And that story continues to evolve. So even as I share this and I have this podcast, and I meet different people and I interview different women, that opens the door to other things, to conferences. It just opens the door and it begins to evolve, and my purpose begins to continue to evolve. And so something else that I did want to say too is that we also move in different seasons of life. Like there was a season when I was writing that book, and that was my purpose for that particular season, one of my purposes for that particular season. But as I began to grow and evolve and mature and understand a little bit more, then I began to move into another purpose that it's still aligned with what I've ultimately been called to do, which is impact, influence, empower, and change lives, right? And so it just manifests itself in different ways. And so, yeah, so that was something that really began my purpose journey. But I think what it is important to share is that, again, purpose, it's a noun and it's a verb, right? The only person that can live out your purpose is you. The only person that can do this journey called life is you. The only person that can change the trajectory of your life or move or shift your destiny is you. The only person who can write the next chapter of your life is you. And so you are the author of your story, and this is your journey. This is your journey that you have to walk it, though. Like, I can't walk it for you. I could talk on this podcast. I can encourage you along the way. I can inspire you. I can give you tools. I can give you resources, but you actually have to walk that journey. And so that is also something that is unique to purpose, right? It's been given to all of us, but we have to choose to use it. We have to choose to walk in it. We have to choose to accept the call, right? And so if if you are feeling like you are stuck, or you're feeling like there is more, or you're feeling unfulfilled, or you're feeling like I did, like you was on this hamster wheel and you were just going and going and going, but you weren't reaching anything, you weren't making a difference, you weren't doing that thing that you've been called or created to do, I'm telling you, it's purpose calling you. It is purpose calling you, and you have a responsibility to discover what that is and to actually walk in it and to actually move in it. And I'm so here for you. I'm so here for you to do it. I know that you can. I know that you were called to it. I know that you were created for it. And so, yeah, I wanted to talk about this before we dived in to the conversations with the other women, because the conversations are so important, because as you begin to be intentional about how you live your life and live it with intentionality and a purpose mindset, you're going to encounter ups and downs. It's not going to be just as life is, so is purpose. This journey of life is your purpose, right? And so there are going to be encounters that may not feel good, may discourage you, as you're walking. And so I love to share the stories because these women are so transparent, and they share how they overcame. They share situations that they may have encountered, and they allow us to walk with them on this journey called life and the things that they've been able to do and they've been able to accomplish. And what that does is it gives you an opportunity to either relate to their story or to be encouraged by their story, and to just allow you to continue moving forward with the motivation and the encouragement that you need to do so. And so I'm super excited about this season because this is a purpose season. Like, we have 4 months left in 2020, and we are going to still be knocking out and walking in our purpose, right? Because every day that you've been given is a valuable day. It's a day of value. It's a day of value. And so I'm excited about this season. I'm glad that you guys will be joining me. And we're going to have a great time as we are focusing on that purpose pillar. And so, guys, I hope that this podcast has been insightful and encouraging. I hope that you are geared up for this purpose season that we're walking in. And I just also want to encourage you to leave this life empty. And so, what I mean when I say that is that leaving everything, every gift, every talent, every influence, every impact that you possibly could have made, leaving it here on this earth. And so that when we go on to glory, God is able to say, well done, my good and faithful servant, because you left nothing in your hands, okay? You did everything that you were called to do. You walked in everything that you were called to walk in. And I'm so proud of you that you lived that life. You lived your best life, right? All right, y'all. So get on some of these assignments. They weren't technically assignments, but I've given y'all a lot of tools and a lot of resources that if you are struggling and you're trying to figure out, like, what's my next move? What do I do? These are some of the things that you can do. These are some of the things that you can do. And so, Yeah, if you guys are also interested in some one-on-one coaching, I do offer that as well. And we can work through this process and get you to a place where you're starting to walk in everything or walk in what it is that you've been called to do. And remember, it's baby steps because one thing begets another thing, begets another thing, begets another thing, and you begin to build. So what you do today impacts what happens tomorrow. And what you do tomorrow impacts what happens the rest of the week. And what you do the rest of the week impacts what happens for the month and then for the year and then for years to come. And so it's so important that we're not just living life, but we're living a purposeful life and we're being intentional and walking in the things that we've been called to. And so, guys, until next time, when passion meets perfect purpose, great things happen.